All right, we good?
Smelling leaves.
You guys ever been to the Charleston Tea Garden? I think it's the only one in the Western Hemisphere or some shit.
All right, ready when y'all are.
Oh, my makeup. Forgot my makeup.
Yeah, so I'll do it. It's for you, Cam.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the newest episode of Spill the Beans. I am on the beach, about to head downtown, meet up with my boy Hank Maxwell in order to talk to him. Hank is a project manager and owns a construction company, and he's a project manager for a bunch of our deals. There's Oxford chasing birds, and he's a partner on the development side, understands development inside and out, and he's overseeing the build out of about 82 townhouses for us in Savannah, Georgia, and several other projects, helping out with the island that we just bought outside of Beaufort and Hilton Head, South Carolina, as well as some other apartments that we're building down there too. So anyways, we're gonna go match up with Hank. He's gonna explain I'm gonna just grill him with questions about development. What does that process look like? Taking land that's totally unfinished and getting it to having a building standing there, an asset that's providing some cash flow for you. So check out this episode of Spill the Beans.
Hank, what's up, buddy? Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Welcome to Spill the Beans, dude.
Yeah.
So, I know we got a lot of good stuff going on, man. You're working, we're working together on, the build out of the townhouses outside of Savannah.
Yep.
We're working together on the island and kind of working through the processes on that, along with a couple other projects. Tell me what you're seeing, dude, right now. So I know that your background is in commercial real estate, really the development building side of commercial, estimating on the commercial side. Tell me about, I know your story, but a lot of people on Spill the Beans don't. So I want them to kind of hear it from you initially, and then I got a bunch of questions and stuff that I want to ask you about building, development processes,
cool,
and really that transition that you've made from working for somebody else to starting your own business and
Gotcha.
having your own construction services. So give me high level on your background, dude.
Cool. So, background education, went to Clemson, have a degree in construction, and from there I have been in the construction industry for the past 17 years. Mm-hmm. And I've worked in both residential and commercial. I've done commercial for the last 5 years. I've done some high-end custom homes like Daniel Island,
building them from the ground up.
Ground up construction.
And then you've done some big ass plazas and stuff with.
Yes.
I think you did the one with Dick's and.
Yeah, we built the Dick's Sporting Goods in Mount Pleasant, which included taking the whole Kmart shopping center, turning it into Nordstrom's.
Did you rip them down?
I mean, we didn't tear the whole thing down. We basically renovated the whole building.
Okay.
126,000 square feet, $13 million. So it was probably the biggest job I've ever done.
That sounds like a deal actually for that, man. That's a big complex.
Yeah.
That's a big facility over there. No, it's awesome, dude. So you were doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
And then a couple years ago, you decided to make the transition. You got a lot of good stuff going on, and you're like, you know what? Let's jump into doing my own thing. What was that transition like? Why did you make that transition? And do you wish you would have made it sooner, later? What was it?
So I knew for a while that I was planning to go out on my own. And you actually came along and said, Hank, would you like to do a renovation on my house? This is 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
And you said, hey, you want to renovate my house? And I said, all right, this is my parlay out of working for somebody else. Mm-hmm. I was doing commercial construction at the time, knowing I wanted to get into the residential world, back into the residential world. I jumped into your project and I started it. And in 2020, unfortunately, because of COVID, some things happened. I was able to leave who I was working for in the commercial world and go directly into owning my own business, renovating your house, and then taking on new projects right out of the gate.
Why did you want to go back into residential? Why not stay in commercial?
I would say going into residential, I enjoyed the residential construction. You get more personal, I feel like, whenever you're doing residential work, like meeting with homeowners, understanding their likes, understanding their the detail that they like. I mean, you're building somebody's house.
More the customization of it?
Yes, customization of a house. It's more...
Does it get emotional though?
It's extremely emotional.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say...
Like for me, man, I want to stay arm's length away from that. I don't want nothing to do with that. I want, dollars and decimals and non-emotional stuff. Not in business anyways, right? Like I want to save the emotion for family and friends and hanging out and all that fun stuff. But like in business, dude, I want predictability. Emotions to me just kind of get in the way, and I don't ever want to deal with that. So it's fascinating that you like that, like interacting with, somebody who changes the backsplash 600 times.
Well, I guess I'll say this about not tooting my horn, but I feel like I am good dealing with people and people changing their minds. I mean, I would say it's fun, but also I feel like
it's a skill set that a lot of other people can't handle. And you can kind of steer into that other people see as an obstacle, like me, where I'm like, dude, no, you pick this backsplash. This is the one we're going with. And I would be so mad. They want to keep on. You are very level-headed. You're very unemotional. Like you don't react, right? Like I jump a lot, and I'm like, no, why the hell are we doing that? And it's actually something I need to be more patient with that I need to work on. But you are very good at interacting, and that's a skill set that I don't have that you do have that makes you really good at what you do.
And I feel like the commercial side, it's enjoyable. I mean, you're building big buildings, but almost in a way it becomes, I don't want to say cookie cutter, for finishes and things. Like when you have somebody that says, hey, we're going to go in with this same carpet, same color on the walls, same tile on the ceiling, same. I mean, it's like you feel like you're doing the same thing every day.
Yeah.
And,
so you like
it's
the
not much of a
customization
change.
and like the artistic element.
Exactly. I mean, the personalization of a house. I mean, where somebody says we're going to use this 200-year-old barn wood out of my great grandfather's barn, and we're going to, clad the whole inside of the walls, or we're going to use this. This flooring that we found while we were vacationing in Italy or somewhere,
wood,
that kind of stuff, and it's interesting to
have a storyline behind it, kind of,
Yeah. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. So that's good. So you obviously renovated my beach house over here in Charleston, and you have a whole bunch of other residential kind of projects going on. What have you seen like? Well, twofold. Supplies, and let's talk about the labor force and what's going on with labor costs, both for like people that you're employing and people that you're subcontracting to. Let's hit on that first, and then let's go into like the supply chain of getting materials and what's going on with lumber prices and how they went up and then they dropped back down and now they're kind of still more than what they used to be, but less than what they were just a little bit ago. So like, talk a little bit about that and how that's impacted construction, because there's so much friggin' demand in real estate right now. Are you seeing people holding back from doing a lot of this construction, or are you seeing people just like, yeah, screw it, everybody's making money's cheap to borrow, let's just keep on rocking and rolling, even though supplies and costs are going up?
So there's a lot of factors with that as far as labor goes. So as of right now, like current situation with the industry and with the market, people are struggling to get skilled workers that can actually do the work that they're being contracted to do.
Dude, I'm paying people in my management company, like the maintenance people are making like $20 an hour to change doorknobs. They don't have any even like a really
hardware
tradesman skills. All they're doing is cleaning units, painting, maybe some landscaping stuff, and then changing out doorknobs. And it's like $20 an hour that is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, there are people that are, unfortunately, a lot of people over the past year have gotten out of the trades because the government was basically giving them money. And they were making more money with the government. And so they got out of the trade that they were in. But also
Meaning after COVID, because of the subsidies and all that kind of stuff?
A lot of people left.
I mean, if you're making anything less than like $30,000, I mean, what is the delineation? Right? If the government's going to pay you 30 G's, or you can make 30 G's working, I would think that most people would take that path of least resistance and not work.
Absolutely. You don't want to be out in the heat.
I don't even think it needs to be dollar for dollar. What if the government paid you 75% of what your working income was?
Yeah.
What if they paid you 50%? You don't have to work, you make 50%, or you work and you make I don't know where that is. but I know it's to a point where you walk down the street, man, and like we're on a very commercialized block. There's help wanted signs in
all
every
over the
single
place.
window,
Yeah.
you know? And like nobody can find people to come and work.
Every industry, every sector has the same situation.
Dude, McDonald's paying for people, I think, $14 or $15 an hour right now.
Yeah.
It's wild, man. So
with labor, and I'll go way back. You may remember this, like in high school, way back, there used to be like, part of high school was like you had a trade. You could go into the trades. Like you could be welder, brick mason, electrician, plumber. That's actually gone away. A lot of that has gone away. And so none of these kids, like, you know, from like 10th, 11th, 12th grade, these kids nobody's doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And so you've got companies trying to do the same work without those people.
Yeah.
And so it's become a struggle for a lot of people to find someone to now they actually have to train to do this work. It's not like, hey, you're coming out of doing a trade or either coming out of a school that's taught you for the past 3 or 4 years how to do something. And
you now have to train them on your time on your dime.
Exactly.
And they're learning, and then, you know, like that dude, that's, to a lot of people, they're like, I got to train this person, what if they leave me, right?
Yeah.
The alternative to that is, if you don't train them, I promise you they will leave you, or you're going to have to fire them because they're not very valuable to you. So you're just kind of running the risk of, and I say risk, but it's like, really, you're making an investment in them, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
You're investing educational skills and traits and things that will make an investment into them, and hopefully they recognize that, and hopefully you're helping them develop in more ways than just the technical skills.
Sure.
And hopefully they see that long-term value with you, right?
That's
like,
right.
And you're leading and progressing, and you're like, hey, I want to teach you these traits so that way you can teach somebody else, and then I can elevate you to that next role. I think that's a really important piece, to cast that vision for your team, to make sure that they do stick with you long term. You know?
That's right. And I'll say this, to that point is, I'll use an example, electricians for instance. The guys that have been in the industry, they know their trade, they know what to do, they're very competent. If they've got, say, 5 years of experience, maybe 10, these companies, because they're looking for these people, they are offering these people way above and beyond what you would normally see, to say, hey, we'll give you 4 weeks of vacation, we'll increase your pay by like $10 an hour, we'll give you a vehicle, we'll do all this if you come to work for us. I
like the creativity in the other parts of the compensation package,
absolutely.
Not just the monetary side, but more vacation, more leniency on time off and travel and whatever that looks like. Do you think this is a new normal? Do you think it's like, this is the standard, like get ready because this is the standard across the board? Or do you think once some of the COVID subsidies fall off, do you think it's going to be, prices are going to drop, or not prices, but like cost of labor is going to drop again? Or do you think people just aren't interested in going to work for less money?
I would say it's going to be, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would say that, you know, people like to eat, so they're going to either go, if the government stops giving these subsidies out, I think that obviously people are going to come back to work.
Come back to work for maybe less money.
Maybe less money. So
I think it's going to be hard, man. Dude, it's hard to give somebody so much money and then try to scale that back. It's it's easy to go up, pay more, but it's very difficult to scale that back.
Yeah, people don't like to give away their raises.
Yeah, unless there's something catastrophic that happened and people just want to keep their job and say, hey, listen, you know, don't pay me this much, but pay me this much, and let me just keep on working, because they don't want to be unemployed. But there is so much opportunity for employment out there.
Yes.
Dude, they're going to jump, you know? And you've seen it so much in not just construction, but like in restaurants, you know? Like the service isn't as good as it used to be, right? Like it's people who aren't as skilled or don't care as much or you know, just not there as much as it used to be. It's very difficult to find kind of anything under that $30,000 a year is pretty tough. What about the higher end type trades? Is it still difficult to find, you know, electricians who charge, I mean, they're charging $60, $70, $80, $100 an hour anyways.
Right? Oh yeah, I mean, electricians.
So like, that hasn't changed much, has it?
No, that hasn't changed much. I mean, you've got guys that have been in the industry 20, 25, 30 years. I mean, they're still charging. I mean, one of the guys that I use, I mean, they charge like $150 an hour.
Right.
So, I mean,
has that gone up at all?
It hasn't gone up much.
No.
I mean, it's kind of stayed. I mean, like for a service call or an hourly cost for one guy driving out to a job, doing what he needs to do, if it's on an hourly basis, not just a job basis.
Yeah.
So I would say that's been fairly consistent. So,
and I think that's probably, it's consistent with what I've seen also is like those not higher end jobs, but the jobs that are above $50,000 a year or whatever, those haven't really changed much, right? It's really those more entry level jobs that are under, I would say, $30,000 a year, that now you're paying $30,000 a year for pretty much everything, right?
Yeah.
If you're making, anybody with a salary over 35, 40,000, I think has been pretty steady.
Sure.
It's just kind of it's fascinating to watch,
But I think I'll say the marketing for tradesmen doesn't take effect for some people because they don't know the potential that they could have. I mean, for people that, they may not enjoy it, they may enjoy it. For people that enjoy doing, a tradesman's job, at this point in the economy, you could charge whatever you want. I mean, I read somewhere where they said if you're a licensed welder, you could make $120,000 a year.
Wow.
I mean, that's
wow.
Being certified and going through the training. I mean,
so what's a way, instead of, I feel like every obstacle is also an opportunity.
Oh, yes.
What is a way, how can we bring in people who want to work from, I don't know, Central America or the Caribbean or some people who want to get the hell out of their country because there's not that opportunity there.
Yes.
And they want to come to the United States. Have you ever looked into programs of bringing in immigrants to come and work, and they're willing to work their tail off for $20, and they are skilled, and they have a better work ethic, right?
Yes.
I feel like Americans who are born here are just friggin' spoiled, man. Like
they are.
They don't have anything to compare it to, right? Like it's just they have this assumption and entitlement that they just deserve all this free money because the government gives it to them. Like, I've seen some of the most remarkable success stories of people who came here with, $10 in their pocket and went straight to the top.
That's right.
Because they didn't have the opportunities that are available in the United States in the country that they came from. They come here and they're like, holy shit, I can light this up, and so they go straight to the top because they understand work ethic.
They see the opportunity.
They see the opportunity, the upward mobility, right? Versus somebody who's from here and they're like, let me just do the least I can possibly do and get by in this job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? And just not be the worst and I won't get fired. You know what I mean? Versus, I see a lot of people who come, which is why America thrived. A lot of people came here and they had ambition and no matter what country they came
looking for
from.
a better life for themselves.
Dude, for sure. And they friggin', ran with it. So where is that opportunity? Is there opportunity? Have you looked at all into like, I don't know, green card programs or something like that, where we can bring in badasses and give them a huge opportunity that's way better than what they have to offer. And even if you're paying the same as what you would pay somebody here, but you're getting better work ethic, better skill sets, better tradesmanship, and creating opportunity for people who want to work, right? I don't care what country they're from. I will support anybody who is ambitious and
willing
wants
to make a life
better their situation, right? Like that's who I want to support, right? Some people are like, oh, made in America. And I think that's awesome, but like I support everybody from every walk of life, right? I'm a humanitarian before anything else, although I'm a big patriot because of the opportunity that this country offers. But on an individualized basis, I want to bring amazing people here and give them amazing opportunity. Are there opportunities like that the government offers where we can bring that in?
Yes, there definitely are opportunities. And I remember speaking with a guy last week who owns a construction company. He's owned it for about 30 years. And what he did is he went through that same program and he brought guys in from out of the country through the program. And he said the 20 guys that he brought into the country, none of them had the skill sets that they needed. But through training and helping these guys out, he now has like 40 or 50 guys at his disposal who have basically any and every skill that he needs throughout that entire.
Talking about Carl, right?
Yeah, talking about Carl.
Dude, and he's been able to bring in Yeah, 50, and birds of a feather flock together, right? So you find some rock stars.
Yeah.
And guess what? They know family members, they have friends, they have
exactly
cousins,
right.
they got all these other people in their community who are also great work ethic.
Yes.
You know, who want to learn, who want to better their situation. You bring them here, like they've done work on my backyard, they've done work on the island.
Yep.
You know, you're working with them on some things down in like the Beaufort, Savannah area, on some other projects that we have going on. And these guys come in like friggin' locusts onto the job site and just transform it. And they'll work 12 hours a day. And they're skilled in electrical, they're skilled in plumbing, they're skilled in all these different kinds of things. And you know, obviously, whether they're licensed or I know you're licensed, and you need to make sure that's all taken care of and on the up and up across the board for all that stuff. But like, there are rock stars out there, and there are ways to overcome a lot of the obstacles that are that we're facing right now. And you know, you and Carl have a competitive advantage because you have access to these individuals, and you're not looking at it from an inhibitor, right? It's an actual set you up. And we've been able to do a lot of deals together and move forward on a lot of projects because of that.
And see what happens is you bring these guys in and you treat them well, you take care of them, you give them work, they feed their families, and they will take care of you. I mean, it works.
So
both ways.
I think they bill at like $38 an hour.
That's it.
Right? $38 an hour, which is probably a lot for cleaning and painting and, you know, basic landscaping type stuff. But it is a smoking deal on electrical, plumbing,
like
carpentry, tile work, like all the other things.
Any of those things,
Dude, and all that stuff, and framing, all that kind of stuff, dude. When you balance it all out, you're like, man, I'm getting a ridiculous deal on this at $38 an hour for extremely skilled labor that comes in and smashes out a job very quickly. You know?
Yeah, they come in and they do it quickly. It's not like a guy that takes all day to, you know, sweep a house out.
No, they're not taking a smoke break for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
every 2 hours they take a break for 30 minutes, and you're like, dude, what? These guys come in and they work their tail off for
all day
12
until
hours
it's done.
a day.
Yeah,
you know,
until it's
time
done.
they wake up, but they get paid really, really well, right?
That's right.
They're getting paid very well with benefits. With you know, they travel for a bunch of different projects. They did the mountain house. They did did some of my stuff down in Georgia as well. And like, dude, I'm paying them a $25 a day, you know, food stipend as well on top of the hourly and everything else, man. And they're getting, it's a sweet. I think it's a smoking deal for me, and I think it's a smoking deal for them.
Oh, it is.
And it keeps, you know, you busy, Carl busy, and everybody. And I just think there's more of that, right? I hit up Carl yesterday or the day before. I was like, dude, I need like 2 more crews, right?
Yeah.
Like we're renovating another 50 units in, no, more than that. We're renovating another about 70 units in Georgia. We're building the townhouses with you. We're building the 60 units in Beaufort. We're doing the island. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that's coming down the pipeline. And I'm like, let's start this up, man.
Yeah. So,
well, I think it's a key piece of the puzzle. What about supplies? What are you seeing in the supply chain and access to material and access to HVAC units and access to appliances and access to lumber and pricing and all that?
So pricing has obviously increased, as we know. I mean, like lumber is like the buzzword right now for pricing, and so it's from where it was, like, we'll say lumber, for example, back in like May of this year, it was like $1,600 $1,000 per thousand. Now it's down to like $500. So lumber has come down.
$1,600 per thousand what?
Like dollars. Like in commodities, that's $1,600 per thousand as a commodity. And so it's going from like $1,600 in May down to like it's like $500 was like yesterday. So prices of lumber have come down.
All right, so let's talk about it from a price point of, you know, a sheet of plywood. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So a sheet of plywood before COVID costs how much money?
It was between like 18, 20, 25 bucks.
Okay. A sheet of plywood 6 months ago, about a year after COVID, costs how much?
Like 65.
65. So it 3x'd in price.
Exactly.
A sheet of plywood today, and let's say middle of September.
Yeah.
A sheet of plywood today is how much?
I think right around 40. I'll say this. A lot of the...
So it's still double what it was.
It's still double what it was.
But it's down by 50% of what it was just a short time ago.
Well, it's interesting. Everybody keeps saying, well, the prices of lumber have gone down. Well, what you need to, say, build a house, build apartments, do renovations, like number one, studs, plywood, exterior sheathing, roofing sheathing, all that didn't go down that much. But like the yellow pine, the number twos, things that aren't, used in excess, like normal framing for a house, all of that lumber, like the number two stuff, has gone down exponentially. But all the main...
So do you think that's like...
It's kind of like a
you know what? We bumped it up to here. People still paid it. Let's just leave it up here, kind of a thing.
Yeah, let's bump down the commonly used items, like number one framing lumber, your plywood. Let's leave that kind of high, but then let's kind of knock all the other stuff down.
Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, do me a quick favor. Give me your best takeaway so far from this episode of Spill the Beans in the comments below. Smash the like button. Show me some love, please. And also, share this, subscribe to the channel, so that way you get all the new episodes of Spill the Beans. Appreciate you.
So the pricing of the commonly used stuff has only come down just a little bit.
Yes.
And then the secondary kind of lumber pieces
has come down even more.
More trim pieces, that kind of like the fancy stuff.
Yeah.
That's come down.
That's
almost
come down
to regular
good.
pricing.
Yeah. That's right. So that's what, when people say, hey, it's come down this much, it's the stuff we use all the time has come down a little bit. But then I'll say uncommonly used stuff has come down a lot. So, but with pricing of other materials, what you were asking, prices have, since the beginning of the year, have started to creep up and creep up. I'm talking like, metal's gone up like 20-25%.
Really?
Like, say, metal roofing has gone up that much. Electrical parts and pieces have, like wire and stuff has gone up.
What about not replacement, but like correlated, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
replacement parts?
Kind of like, what could it be replaced with? Meaning like, all right, decking. You know what I mean? Like we're redoing the decking down at the island house or whatever, just updating some of that stuff and pulling off some of the beat up boards and installing new boards. What if we just rip the whole thing off, put Trex decking on there instead? Is that comparable at all? Trex is still what, 2-3 times as much as lumber?
Yeah, it's still going to be expensive. Which I'll say this,
but it was 5 times, 6 times as much as lumber before, right?
Yes.
Or has Trex gone up too? I don't even know.
All of it has.
All of it has. So even Trex has gone up.
I mean, I'll say, for example, we use a material on some of these, like done a couple of these cabanas, like next to people's pools. It's called Versatex. It's basically plastic material. It's PVC material. They've gone up 30%. So like a piece that was like a 1x12 that was 12 feet long was like...
Of plumbing PVC.
Yeah, it's basically like the same material, but it's like building material. It's like comes in nominal board lengths and widths. Say one of those pieces was like $150. Now it's like $185. So I mean, it's going up, like all of it has across the board. Like everything's going up.
Is that because of the supply chain? Is it because supply is low, or because demand is so high? Or
I'll say both. I mean, supply. Like you look at trying to get windows, doors, trusses made. You're talking like 8 to 12 weeks on all this stuff right now. I mean, everything is being pushed back. Everybody's saying, hey, it's hard to get X, Y, and Z. It's hard to get these pieces and parts. It's hard to get, this material. It's hard to get these components. And it's just pushed lead times out so much further than they have normally been.
Yeah.
But
so how do you budget all of this stuff into building new stuff? All right, so let's talk about, I actually want to go through the entire process of what is it like by taking raw land, and what are the step-by-step process of getting that to be built, up into multifamily or townhouses or whatever. And we'll use the stuff that we have down in Savannah as an example.
Sure.
Like, how do you quote that? With prices all over the place, how do you quote that? Is anybody willing to give you a firm number? Is anybody willing to lock in a rate on either labor or material and commit to doing that? Or is everything just kind of, hey, it's variable, here's where we're at right now, but it could go up, could go down?
I'll say this, first off, you want to budget, obviously, where you think your numbers are to get a project. I mean, just like underwriting any apartment deal. Getting your budget squared away on what you think you need to spend or can't go over, or say, hey, this is where current prices are for construction, materials, all this stuff. And you see it's within your budget, asking these suppliers or subs, like you can go direct to a supplier and buy it directly. Or you could go to a sub. Subs currently are saying, I'm not going to guarantee pricing for a week. I'm not going to guarantee pricing for more than a month. I mean, that's what we're dealing with right now, is people don't know what's going to happen. So they're only guaranteeing their prices for only a certain amount of time. I mean, it might be a week, 2 weeks.
So how do you combat that? Have the access to the money, just buy everything up front?
If you have enough, I'll say enough cash available, you could go in and say, I'm going to go Town Park, for example. You go in and say to your HVAC supplier, go ahead and buy all 82 of these air handlers.
Yep.
And we'll pay you, half of it right now. Or, hey guys, go ahead
Will
and
they hold it, or do we have to have it shipped? Because I'm worried about, like, dude, now we got either storage containers or potential theft issues or whatever else.
And I have actually asked this to some of these suppliers for Town Park. Some of the suppliers, for a certain number of materials that we're buying, they will go ahead and buy it just for the fact of, hey, if they don't use it, if Tim and Hank don't use it on this project, we know that we can use it on this other one. Like if somebody, like for say the electrician's going to go buy, 10 rolls of
There's no lack
number
of
8 wire.
right?
Yeah, we're going to use it on another job, even if they don't use it. So it's not like, hey, it's a specialty item. But there are certain, like the trusses. We couldn't go and just order trusses and let them sit, because there are obviously things that take up a lot more space than.
And they can rot and all sorts of other things.
Oh, exactly. So it's combating that. You can go and try and guarantee your pricing with your subs or suppliers. You can go in and buy your materials up front and say, we're going to go buy a storage space, and do your math and say, hey, if we get 5 storage spaces, in a storage unit, is the cost for whatever that material going up going to be exponentially more than what it's going to cost for us to hold it for 6 months?
Yeah, it's a great point.
So
it
that's something that you can do.
And it eliminates the risk, and right? And stabilizes your pricing if you can do that.
And it's no longer a lead item. You don't have to worry about it being scheduled, but also you can go put your hand on it.
Yeah.
And that's one way that you can do it. I mean, like for flooring, for example, you could have gone and bought it a year ago and said, hey, we've got 90,000 square feet of this type of LVP flooring that we just bought and stuck in a storage unit.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So that's one way to combat like increased prices, but it's like everything's slowly going up. But then I think a lot of people have rolled the dice and said, hey, like for lumber, a lot of people went and bought a lot of lumber and they're storing it, but a lot of people are saying, hey, I'm going to just wait it out and let it come back down.
Kind of roll the dice. Like it can't possibly go further up than this, right?
And it's done that to a lot of people. So
yeah, we'll see. I mean, another thing that we've had a conversation about, and we kind of structured it with the Savannah deal, is like, hey, we need to keep costs down. Yes. So how can I compensate you with some equity in the project and reduce the overhead that the project's going to take on? And that's a way that you can kind of link arms and align with the contractor, the GC of the project, in a way that now they're more incentivized to keep costs down because they're getting incentivized by equity in the deal. At the same time, it's keeping the total overall cost down because you don't have to pay as much. So I know we've kind of created some hybrids on that on the Town Park deal, and then we're talking about it on some of the other projects that are coming down the pipeline right now. So like that's another way that you can definitely just standardize or reduce some of your costs, even with everything that's going on right now, which isn't standard. Most contractors don't get equity in a building, or they don't get equity in the project. So
it's usually just fee based. That's it.
And so it creates a huge opportunity for the contractor to actually build some wealth instead of just get paid on it. So I think if you paint the right vision, and if it's a great asset and something that you want them involved in long term, I think that's a great option to offer to the contractor.
Yeah, absolutely.
A way that you guys can kind of work together on some stuff. So let's shift gears just a little bit, and I want to talk about, like, I feel like development and construction and ground up is very intimidating, right, for a lot of people who don't come from the construction world. So I want to talk about what does that process look like to go from raw land to owning and having some built apartments or townhouse. Let's do the townhouse project.
Gotcha. Okay.
So right now, we have townhouses in Savannah, Georgia that we went in and they were already, the infrastructure was there, right?
Yes.
It was a part of a townhouse development with about 300 units or something like that. We have 82 lots, and we're going to build townhouses and finish out the development. But the roads are in, the infrastructure's in, the zoning's all there, the sewers are in, the electricals to the streets, all that stuff's there, you know? So it's not, it's already, you know, it abbreviates the process quite a bit, where it expedites it and reduces a lot of the risk for us as the people who are actually building and going vertical with it. But let's talk about, let's say somebody who's watching this or somebody has some land that's totally raw land, meaning there's no development. It's, you know, they got 15 acres in a great site to build whatever the asset is, but let's call it apartments, let's call it townhouses. What is the first thing, if you had some family land and you got 20 acres or whatever, what's the first thing that you would do in order to go through the process of building apartments on that land?
Gotcha. First off, I'm going to make sure it's not like a wetland, like a protected wetland, obviously.
Well, how do you find it out?
So you're going to go to, you're going to find out what the zoning is on the property. You're going to see where it is. You're going to.
And how do you find that out? You go to the building department?
You can look it up most of the time, like on a GIS website for the county. They'll let you know what that is.
So on the county website, you can look up that parcel and it'll show what it's zoned for.
Exactly.
Now it'll say R2, R4, or commercial, whatever.
That's it.
And that's pretty standard across the country of what that zoning, what those references or ID numbers, like what those IDs are.
It'll give
so
you
can just Google that and figure out what that is.
It'll give you areas. Now I'll say if you have, say you have a property that is zoned like residential, and say you want to go build apartments on it, what you would need to do is go before the city or the county. You would have to go and request that it be zoned for multifamily.
Because residential is not the same as multifamily. Residential is typically single family.
Exactly.
And then there's another zoning that's multifamily residential, which is 2 to 4 units.
Exactly.
And then there's another one that's 5 units or plus.
So depending on what you want to build, you need to go see what it's zoned for, and if it's not zoned for what you're planning to build, obviously, that's what you want to go and have it changed to.
So what if I don't know anything about any of this? Like, who's the best resource to go and talk to? Do I need to talk to an architect, an engineer, or do I go to the building department and just act stupid and ask them a bunch of questions and let them steer me in the right direction?
The first thing that you could do is talk to somebody who's obviously done it before, if you can find a contact. But you could also go, like you just said, you could go to the building department, you could talk to somebody through the county, or you could talk to somebody through the city. They would be able to direct you what you needed to do. You would also need to have you would need to go to an engineer. They could come and do a survey for you.
Okay, so step one is go find out what it's zoned for.
Yep.
If it's not zoned for that, go to the city building department. They'll walk you through the process of the request and the steps that are needed to get it zoned for something else.
Yes.
Chances are, in order to get it zoned for something else, you're going to need an engineer to come in and look at the land and look at the layout and the topography of the land and kind of give you some insights. And they're going to give you like a civil engineer or whatever is going to come in and say, hey, you can, you know, based on this much wetlands and this much uplands or dry lands, you know, you got 20 acres, 15 acres of it is actual buildable.
That's right.
And you know, and here's the density that we would suggest for this.
That's right.
And then, would you also go to the architect right then and have them kind of start putting some preliminary designs together, so that way you can go through that approval process? Is that needed that early on, or are you just trying to change the zoning early on?
Well, you would want to know what you're going to build. You would have to.
And before they give you the new zoning, they're going to want to know exactly what you want to build, right?
Yes.
So really, you do need to outlay a bunch of cash for the engineering, for the architectural renderings.
Yes.
So that way you can go in there and say, approve this, not preliminarily approve something. It's like they want to approve something very specific to what that land is going to be used for. They don't just want to change the zoning, right?
That's right.
So go to the engineer, they're going to give you a bunch of details. What are the things that the engineer is going to give you? And any idea, and can you give me any approximation of cost on that?
Like for engineering fees or?
Yeah, for engineering, like when you want to go change the zoning, what is the engineer going to give you? What are the things that they're going to provide to you? And about what does that cost? And I know it's probably a loaded question because that could be all over the board based on what the building is.
Sure.
But I don't know, can you give me any generalities to that?
I mean, they're going to come in, what the engineer's going to do is they're going to go in and they're going to survey the property, but then they're going to have to show you on that buildable land, where your easements are, how many, say, buildings or units can go on this. Are you going to have detention for runoff, your roads, your streets?
Are they working with the architect, hand in hand?
Most of the time, they're basically going to do that. You're going to have your renderings of what you want to do, and then the engineer is basically going to tell you, because you're going to have to go not only through your architect, structural engineer is going to have to show you what you can build, like how to build the structure, the structure of the building, but also your civil engineer who is going to be doing all the land layout. They're going to go through and tell you, this is how many parking spots you have to have. Mm-hmm. This is where the roads are. This is where your utilities come into the property. They're going to tell you all of those things. Yeah. It's going to be, and I would say, let's say for example, you've got our property in Town Park. I mean, you're looking at an engineer saying it's going to cost you $50,000 to $80,000 just up front for them to engineer all of this together.
How did you ballpark that? Did you ballpark that because of a price per unit? Or did you ballpark that based on how much acres we have? Did you ballpark that like
the land area? So
the land area.
Yes.
And how many acres do we have there?
Oh geez, is it like, I can't even remember how many it is now.
20, 25?
I don't know if it's 25.
I mean, if we're building 80 units, I'd assume it's probably, what do they give us, 4 to 8 units per
I would say
acre?
It was like 15 to 18 acres is what we had that was buildable.
4 to 6 units per acre then is essentially the density that they gave us. Okay, and so for 15 acres, 15 to 18 acres, you said it's going to be $50,000 to $80,000. Is that about $5,000 per buildable acre is the general expectation on an engineering fee?
I think so, yes.
Is that around it? Okay, that's good.
Right.
That's a good number to know.
I mean, it's a, again,
yeah, it totally changes based on the area, based on, we're dealing with some wetlands and stuff. We're dealing with area, like this is the low country, right? So like there's a lot more of that we have to deal with here than you do in Ohio or in North Carolina or something, right? So I totally get that. And what are the municipal fees and stuff and all that kind of jazz that could go into it, how much, red tape is there depending on where you're building. If you're building in New York City and Manhattan, it's probably a lot more than in rural Georgia or whatever.
That's right.
So what about the architectural side of things? Like what can you ballpark, like what are the architects doing and let's ballpark, or like if you were looking at something and said, hey, I want to build 80 doors here, what would you say and why would you price it out at that? So what are the architects doing first? And let's talk about estimating cost of soft costs there.
What they're going to, and again, this is kind of relative to the project. So if they're going to come in and they're going to, say for us, we're doing townhomes. Mm-hmm. So they were able to give us, like, other than the layouts of each building, they were able to give us one drawing for one unit that can be used 82 times.
Right.
So
that's a lot different, right?
Yeah, that cuts down costs. But if you've got 3 different buildings, 5 different buildings that you're building out there that have, say, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms that are going to be scattered.
And they're different. They have, different.
I mean, you're talking like
different frontages and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Like for us, we're thinking, $20,000 to $25,000 for, say, what we're going to do, versus like $80,000 to $100,000 for like an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Like for architecture.
And is that based on price per unit? Is that where you're coming up with that? Or again, based on density, or based on square footage, or just like flat fee, here's what to expect on this size project, or is it a percentage of the overall project? Like, you say, hey, it's a $10 million deal, you expect to spend 1% on.
You can look at it that way. I mean, I'm
trying to figure out like what is the quick analytic, like metric, just ballpark number. I always try to simplify it to that. I understand it's not always across the board the same. But what I want people to understand is like, all right, if I said, hey, I want to build something new, expect to spend 5% of your total project cost on soft costs. Or is it 10% or anything like that?
You can usually use, I would say like 8 to 10% of.
I would say that too. I'm thinking about the different, like we got, I think 4 new construction projects, and I think it's around 8 to 10% across the board on all of them. The bigger ones, it's a little bit smaller. The smaller ones, it's a little bit more, 10, 11, 12%. And on the bigger projects, it's closer to that 7 or 8%, I'm thinking. So yeah, and that's total soft cost, right?
That's right.
That's kind of all of it, engineering. All right, so find out what it's zoned for. We're gonna go and get it, apply for rezoning. We got all the architectural renderings, all the engineering reports. We go to the city, we sit in front of the city, and that's typically set out. I mean, right now it could be months out. Like this whole process could take a year or 2 years easily.
Yes, easily take a year.
Which is why we like buying things that are already improved and already infrastructure's in and approvals are in place.
A ton of holding costs if you're doing this.
Yeah, a lot of holding costs of something that's not performing, and that's why you see a lot in the development side of people contracting the property and not buying the actual property.
That's it.
They'll contract it and put down, $10,000 on 100 acres, like something. You're like, well, how is it so inexpensive? Because they're creating value for this.
That's right.
They're going through the approval process. Essentially, if they get it done and they don't close, it created a ton of value for the seller. And typically it's like, hey, once I get these approvals in place, I'll close within 30 days thereafter. But that way they don't have to outlay all these costs because they're spending a lot of money. They're not outlaying costs on the purchase because they're spending a lot of money on that upfront process of getting all the approvals in place. So getting the approvals in place, that essentially means being approved to build townhouses or apartments or whatever we want to do, getting the green light from the city. They might make a couple changes or suggestions on the architectural renderings, and then say, hey, here's the density, here's what we'll allow you to do. Or, like, we desperately need housing, why don't you guys push it up? Instead of building 3 stories, we're going to give you 4 stories to build because we desperately need this. And that all depends on the municipality that you're in as well. So that can all happen. Let's assume the approvals get in place from that town or city meeting. Then what's the next step? Now you go close on the land, and then what's the next step in order to start rocking and rolling, moving forward?
So if you've got all your architecturals, engineering plans, you've got all of these together, the next step is you're going to go submit your drawings to the town for permitting for the project. Now, if you're going to build it yourself, if you're a contractor, or you're going to go to 2 or 3 contractors and say, I need you to bid this project.
Yep.
And then you get that pricing back and hope that it's in your budget.
Yep.
And then after that, you're going to then
pull permits, right?
Yeah, you're going to go pull permits. Well,
so now you're, go ahead.
You can take, let me back up. You're going to take all your drawings, you're going to find out what your costs are by giving them to these contractors. Contractors are going to then give you pricing. You then choose your contractor. After you decide who your contractor is, who's ever, reputation, cost, however you choose, then you're going to take, the contractor's going to take, and they're going to submit these drawings to the city or the county, and then they're going to go pull the permits, and then you're going to start construction.
And they're licensed, they're bonded, they're insured. They're not going to be able to pull the permits unless they're licensed in that city, registered in that city, and then have the right approvals and all that kind of stuff in place. They're going to take that to the city, the building department's going to stamp those and give them the approvals, give them all the permits.
That's right.
And then you start going vertical, right?
That's it.
It's good. What about working with banks and the draw process and all that? What have you learned in that process? What do we need to be aware of in that process?
So what banks like to do is they'll designate somebody that will go out and obviously inspect the property before they give you any money. So what the contractor will do is you will set up a draw schedule, or either you'll set up what's called a schedule of values. And when you get to a certain point on your draw schedule, say you've gone out and you've done all the site work, first 30 days, and this is usually on a monthly basis. Say you've done in the first 30 days, you got all your site work done. So then you'll send in a request for a draw to the bank, or either to the owner, and they'll have a bank representative go out. They will check the property. They will say, yeah, everything's good to what they're telling us they're billing for, and then they'll release the money to you. And that's usually how it works.
Yep. So a lot of times you have to outlay that cash up front.
That's right.
Or get the vendors on some sort of 30, 60, 90-day pay schedule. So that way they supply the material, and then you have the material on site and actually installed, put up, and then all of a sudden the inspector comes out for the bank, checks all these different boxes saying all this stuff's been done, and then you get reimbursed, and then you go and spend the next tranche and just keep on going. So you definitely need access to capital to keep construction rolling.
Yep.
And it's a hell of a process, man. So from a going vertical standpoint, site work you mentioned. So now you're going in, making sure all the land is graded the way that you want it to be graded, and flat wherever you need it to be flat, and all that kind of stuff. So that way you can build. And then you're doing foundational items.
That's right.
Right. And from foundation, then you're doing framing.
That's right.
And getting all the underground stuff too, right? If it's not already in. So you're putting roads in, you're putting sewers in, doing all that stuff with the grading and all the infrastructure. And then you're doing foundation. Then you're putting up the framing.
Yep.
Then you're doing all the rough-ins, so the plumbing, the electrical, the mechanical,
all that
type stuff, right?
Yep.
Windows and doors go in around that same time.
Yep.
And then from there, what's the process? All the finish?
Yeah, it's just finished. Once you get it, what they call dried in, basically you get the roof on, you get the walls, you get all the, basically building enclosed.
Yep.
Windows in.
The wrap around it, and essentially
everything on it.
Essentially making it weatherproof.
That's
right?
it.
Dried in.
Yes. Then you start on your finishes on the inside. Throughout this process, you are getting inspections for milestones that you're hitting while you're going through the process.
So the city's coming out and approving the infrastructure.
Exactly.
The city's coming out and approving the foundation. The city's coming out and approving the framing. And they're coming out and doing electric inspections and plumbing inspections. So it's not just you relying on the contractor, the subs. It's the city's coming out, signing off on that, which seems like a pain in the ass, and they're like, they're going to come in, but it also significantly reduces your liability as the owner of the project to make sure that, hey, this person's the contractor's licensed and bonded. Yeah. The city came out and inspected it, and then the lender's inspectors come out. So it's like it's hard to mess up, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll see. The best thing, like if you have a general contractor that's doing this, they're going to be scheduling the city. They're going to be scheduling all these inspections that need to happen, so they make sure the project continues on schedule. So it's not just, say, the owner or you worrying about these things. So if you've got a general contractor doing all these things for you, they're going to be taking care of all of this. Like, say you've just framed it, got the roof on, you're going to call for a framing inspection. As soon as that passes, you're going to start on your rough ends.
Yep.
Then as soon as all the rough ends are done, you're calling in for another inspection, you get the rough end inspection done. Then as soon as that's done, you get your sheetrock started. And it continues to flow as you hit these milestones, and the contractors most of the time, they're taking care of all this stuff.
Yep.
So as an owner, you don't necessarily have to worry about that other than having your, weekly, bi-weekly meetings just to check progress.
Make sure you find somebody who's competent, who knows what they're doing.
Yes.
A lot of times has worked in that city before, helps big time, and or has vendors and contractors and stuff that have worked in that city. That's all good stuff, man. When you build the whole thing up, get management in place, get it all filled up with great tenants, and let the bad boy cash flow. So that's good. I think that gives a good process map of what to expect and what to look for when you're doing ground up construction. And I think with pricing as inflated, or not, maybe it's not inflated, maybe it's just appreciated so much the way it has, you got to create that value add right now. And you can either buy existing buildings that need a facelift and need a lot of work and pretty heavy lift there. Or maybe you do some of this new construction stuff, right? Yeah. Taking raw land or taking already improved land and then building something out. You can create a lot of equity through that sweat equity that you're putting into it, and create a lot of value that maybe you can't find if you just buy something at a retail price. Gotcha. So it's a way to kind of balance out, and it's one of the things that we're doing. Like we're not only buying existing buildings, but we're also building new construction and kind of balancing out the returns. These have a little bit higher returns, but perceived more risky. That's right. These have more stable, lower returns, but more stable, right? And so if you can take two projects and kind of balance them out that way, and get your investors the returns that they're looking for, and get you the returns that you're looking for. Create some big opportunities. So
I'll give you an example real quick of, say, Charleston County, the Tri-County area is talking about doing construction versus, say, a value add or buying and renovating and refining. Charleston County has got like, the population growth is like 2% a year right now. The Tri-County area needs at least 7,500 new dwellings, houses, units per year up until 2030. So for the next 9 years. And a lot of people are obviously buying units, they're flipping houses, people are buying apartments that are existing and just renovating. But going through the sweat equity of actually building something new, which I know land down here, it's not being made anymore, so it's land costs are expensive. But to be able to build something brand new and provide those additional units, housing, whatever it may be, a lot of people complain, oh, they're probably developing something here or over there. It's actually not enough. It's still not enough for how much our town's growing, our city's growing. So
wild,
it's a lot of, I feel like if you have the skill and know how to do it, you could still do very well, even though, unlike what you traditionally do, with the, like holding costs for construction and having to go through that whole process is more time consuming, a lot more variables.
Yeah.
But it's obviously still very lucrative for here. So
I think,
and for anywhere, I think.
You build the carrying costs, you build the holding costs into the overall project costs. You look at the economics. Does it still make sense? Right? And if it does, then you pursue the project. If it doesn't, or if it's too close, you got to go and tighten up the numbers, man. You got to tighten your belt somewhere, sharpen the pencil, and see where you can reduce some of the costs. And a lot of times that's trying to buy the land cheaper.
That's right.
It's getting more bids and more quotes on supplies and material, and looking at where can you keep the cost down on that side.
And it might be reconfiguring your building, what you're planning to do. Hey, are we hey, we might be able to
more.
Yeah, we might be able to do more. Hey, we might only be able to do 4 buildings instead of 5.
Yeah.
And so, and then another thing, I know with banks, what you asked earlier, like if you're talking to a bank and you're trying to get financing for this, they're going to ask you, hey, are you just going to build this and sell it? Your financing might be different if you say, hey, no, we're going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
So then you need to be thinking
a lot of different
strategies of how you construct the deal to make it work. So
it's good stuff, man. All good stuff. Well, it gave me a lot of clarity. Even though I've done some development stuff, I've never really been the key person. I've always just kind of like funded some projects or partnered on projects and signed on the loan kind of thing. So it gave me a lot of clarity on what are those steps.
Yeah.
And
those are
gives me a little bit
more
comfortability in what other projects and stuff that we might want to take on, man. So, dude, I appreciate you being here, buddy.
Absolutely, brother.
Appreciate the friendship, and I know we know each other for a long time, and excited for all the different deals that we got coming down the pipeline.
It's exciting. Always.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hope you guys had a ton of good insights from that, and kind of takes that complexity of development and what that looks like and simplifies it a little bit to what do the step-by-step processes look like in order to start doing some of that stuff on your own. So I got a lot of development deals. We got 6 of them right now. I'm trying to actually unload 2 of them and build out 4, not including the island. So if you have that one in, it's really like 5. And all those are going to be off the ground, moving forward, rocking and rolling by the end of this year. And we'll be looking for more development deals beginning of next year. So if you come across anything, hit up Nick or go to legacywealthholdings.com and click on submit a deal, and you can shoot some stuff over. My director of acquisitions, Nick Burton, will take a look at it and let you know if it's a deal, if it's not a deal, or what it needs to look like to be a deal. And like always, guys, if you guys got some good takeaways, write them in the comments below. Give me some thumbs up if you would. The reason I do this is so that way we can grow, we can share the message with a lot more people, help other people build wealth. And it doesn't help if we don't get messages and likes and comments and shares. So do me a favor, just share it. Put it in front of some people who want to get in the development world and just need a little bit of that understanding of what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and who to contact. So until next time, Oxford says be your best.